Live.
We're live.
We are live.
Well, welcome to the Edina Transportation Commission's August 19th, 2021 meeting. We are having a hybrid meeting with some attendees remote, and so I will state their names. We have Chris Brown, we have Okar Kane, and Janet Katuri. And with that, Andrew, do we just move to look at the meeting minutes for today?
Roll call before that.
Okay.
Commissioner Aller. Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Kane.
Here.
Commissioner Kachui.
Here.
Commissioner Lewis.
Here.
Commissioner McCarthy.
Here.
Commissioner Plum Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Richmond.
Here.
Chair Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Attree. Commissioner Clark. Commissioner Kariwala.
Here.
All right, welcome everybody. We have our meeting minutes for today. And is there any discussion on the content or the sequence? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve as prepared?
So moved.
Second.
Call.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Kane.
Aye.
Commissioner Kachui.
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis.
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy.
Aye.
Commissioner Plum Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Richmond.
Aye.
Chair Johnson.
Aye,
Agenda is approved.
thank you. And next we'll look at the recording of, or the minutes from last month from July 15th. Is there any discussion on the minutes from last month? Okay, hearing none, we could have approval on that, a motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes from last month.
In a second.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Kane.
Aye.
Commissioner Kachui.
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis.
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy.
Aye.
Commissioner Plum Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Richmond.
Aye.
Chair Johnson.
Aye,
Minutes are approved.
thank you. And there's no community comment, or is there?
We've got special recognitions and first.
First, oh, thank you.
So I just wanted to take this opportunity to recognize Commissioners Attree and Kariwala. This is the last meetings of their term. And this, on behalf of the city, we want to thank you for your contribution and for your service on the commission. We wish you best of luck in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It has been great to have you on the commission. Thank you for participating with us, helping us.
Okay, and then we're on section 6, and it's just us, so we can move on to reports and recommendations.
I have one question.
Yes, I can barely hear you.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
It's better.
Yes, better.
So I do have one question. We did get a comment and via email, or a community member was going to be participating. They are no longer participating or bringing up, or was the written email sufficient? And the community member was Julie Riser.
You have, Commissioner Katubi, that there was a lot of noise in the hallway and I really couldn't hear what she was saying.
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry,
let me get my headphones just a second.
Andrew, a process question, please. We have a visitor that would like to be part of the public comment that you passed.
And she went to the wrong location because I gave her the
Yeah.
wrong location.
So could we go back to that, please, and then
Yes,
pick up where we started? Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes,
Okay. Well, my question was on the community comment. I believe we have in communication from the resident Julie Reiser, and she was asking about something. So are we taking that email or?
but
Is
we have
she-
I believe we have Julie here, so
Okay,
would you please state your name and address, please?
Okay, my name is Julie Risser and I live at 6112 Ashcroft Avenue in Edina, near the Wooddale Valley View node.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You have a couple, 3 minutes to
Okay.
present what you like, and then, just so you know how it goes, we listen actively, but we don't necessarily have discussion unless there's a clarifying question.
Yep,
And when you're done, you are welcome to leave. If
Okay.
you, for some reason, won't stay, you're welcome to do that too. There's chairs along the side. also.
okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you
All
for being
right.
here.
Well, I will leave the images so you can have them once I go, but I'm featuring Valley View Apartments as Exhibit A. And I want to point some things out. We have very poor process in Edina. Other cities, they have planning department people go out into the neighborhoods to review projects. My understanding is that that does not happen here. And so what we end up is an image that shows the project. And you can see along Valley View, there isn't even any indication that there is a bike lane here. And this is a very disturbing project because it was granted a 16-foot setback, which is a reduction from the 36-foot. And then the patios were granted an extreme 2-foot setback. So essentially there is no open space. And this is particularly problematic because if you were to look at the Hennepin County GIS map and look at this area and think about how close up to the road it's going to be, it is setting an entirely new precedent. That's not the only new precedent, and the precedent is being super, super close to that road. My understanding is that there has been talk about improving the sidewalk and the bike trail here. No way that can happen now. And what's disturbing is if you watch the hearings in front of the Planning Commission and City Council, the developer makes his case and then it ends up being a flipped narrative in which, oh, poor developer, developer has to put short-term parking on the sidewalk, or not on the sidewalk, on the street, blocking the bike lane. And if you look at all of these other buildings, the one on the corner has no entrance off of Valley View. It doesn't even have one off of Wooddale. Instead, you have to go behind it. All of the other ones have parking in front of the structures. And so this is setting, again, another new precedent. And it got so many setbacks, it got a CUP, it should have been told it had to create a pull-off parking space. A resident did suggest that instead of having the office close to the intersection on that western side, it got moved to the eastern side because that's where the driveway is. And if they had done that, they could have created an office on the other side. The developer completely dismissed that idea. And there really didn't seem to be a lot of true understanding of the value of having multimodal transit in Edina. The other thing that is very disturbing is now that this architect has essentially mucked up the south side of the street, this architect is pushing to get setbacks along the north side of the street on the old Burley site. Okay, and I think this has led me, I've been thinking about it for a while, but we need to recognize, I have suggestions here, that creating multimodal transit is a top priority in Edina and request a moratorium on setback reductions along roads where pedestrian and bike paths have been targeted for improvement. There's no reason why people can't build within the setbacks. Request that Edina hire a zoning officer who can work out of the Edina Police Department. This could be modeled after what's happening in Eden Prairie. And if you go to their site, you see zoning, and then there's a name of a person who you can contact. If you look up zoning in Edina, you get zoning and a list of links that takes you to the actual ordinance, but not anybody who could actually help you. And as I see things take place, it is alarming what's passing as being acceptable. For the Burley site, they are actually arguing that density can be higher than code would allow for that 0.27 acre site. It's capped at 30 per acre, so it should be 8 units or less. But the architect is actually making the case, and the city is actually articulating the same thing, that what the developer can do is take that size of acreage and then add it to a 1 acre lot down the road and simply combine the 2 acreages, even though they're not adjoining property, even though this is a finished development, and say, hey, we only put 14 units on the 1 acre. Conceptually, this parcel and this parcel were part of the same project. Ergo, we can put 13 units. That is complete, I'm sorry, but it's total horsepucky. And so to build on that idea, and what is very upsetting is that that sketch plan has passed planning and council, and it didn't get stopped. And I have contacted the mayor, the council, the planning commissioners, the city manager. Nobody's doing anything. That project remains on the site. And the other thing, I thought maybe the Department of Labor and Industry could help me out, because Edina did adopt the Minnesota State Building Code. And it does say that the Minnesota State Building Code is the minimum construction standard throughout all of Minnesota, including all cities, townships, and counties. Although it isn't enforceable by municipalities unless it is adopted by local ordinance, the state building code creates a level playing field for the construction industry by establishing the construction standard for all buildings in the state. And, that's not happening here. And the other thing is, I do want to go talk to people about.
Pardon me, I'm just going to interrupt a minute. It's been more than 3 minutes.
Okay, I can stop now.
But I do
Okay.
want to say you've already covered so many important things, and it's a lot to process.
Okay,
But I do want to ask, if you're almost done, keep going, but I did want to let you know it's longer than that.
okay,
I want to be flexible.
I
especially if you're
appreciate
at the end.
this, but I think it's also, it has to do with race and equity and social justice as well, because, if we're bending the rules for certain local developers, we should be doing it for everybody. So anyhow, I'll just stop.
Okay, did you finish the last main point? Two?
Well, no, I didn't. I also feel like the images that we see are pretty much fantasy images. We don't get any actual images. And I think we should require all developers to show bike lanes in projects in their illustrations. Like, that's the minimum. This should include a bike lane, and developers don't have to do that. The other thing is, I really would like you to take a look, and I provided the link in the email, what happened to the pickup truck. The whole idea is that people are going to be downsizing their vehicles and biking and walking more. But the reality is that people are buying these huge, 7,000 pound trucks. And so that's not the actual reality. And so we need to see that.
Thank you. Are these the same, a couple clarifying questions, please. Are these the same materials that you provided in?
Well, I didn't put this in,
Okay,
so, but
well, I appreciate that.
yeah, so I can just leave this here.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Really appreciate that.
have a good one, but I would love to see a moratorium,
Okay.
Thanks, Julie. Have a good one.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Point of order question, since it's not on our agenda, if we wanted to discuss this. Does that fall under member comments? Since it's not an agenda item?
Well, I am interested in kind of how it came to be like this. We raised the issue. And it was in your report. How did it come to be then that was disregarded? The bike lane in particular?
And having a place for.
short-term.
That's what I remember
Yeah.
was, our
delivery.
concern of a place for
Yep.
delivery vehicles.
Yeah,
that
it was
wouldn't
like
I mean, it was
eight
jump the
important
bike
times.
lane.
So that was a concern that both Planning Commission and the Transportation Commission brought up, was reflected in their memos. Council approved the project with the setback as she described. This time, I don't have detailed information as to what necessarily motivated council to grant that setback. But aside from that, there's not really much the commission can do at this point, other than perhaps draft an advisory communication of some sort to council.
And when you say an advisory communication of some sort, like, obviously, we're not gonna advise them through a reprimand. What sort are you thinking?
Well, for example, not that I'm recommending this, but her point about issue about moratoriums on setbacks for areas where ped and bike improvements are recommended. That would be an example of something you could recommend to the council. But yes, I wouldn't recommend writing a communication that just says, we don't like what you did in this,
Yeah,
for this
well,
project.
So can
Was
we,
there a response in their discussion regarding our concerns?
I would have to look back in the minutes to, I don't
Because that
recall.
would, if they did, and we say, we hear you, we just don't agree, that's one thing. But if they didn't address them to us, that would be something that would be nice to have going forward. To say, we have carefully reviewed your, comments and suggestions, and here's our thinking on the issue. I mean, that would be nice to address it to our committee or publicly.
but the other thing I wanted to add would
Can you
be,
speak up a
Yeah,
little
here
bit,
you
Bakar?
are.
yeah, I'll scream. Okay, can you hear me now better?
Yes.
Okay, the other thing would be probably to ask, did council know about all the ramifications she has raised in this during, her time today? That's the first thing. If they weren't aware of that, how do you make sure that those are highlighted next time you bring them these approvals? Like the setbacks.
So again, I'm not certain if she raised these particular concerns to council at the time the project was being approved, but
No.
I am aware that.
Sorry, Andrew, you're not understanding me. What I'm saying, did the city highlighted those potential issues to council, saying these are some potential issues that could happen?
Yes, they were in the
Council
report.
doesn't
They
know.
were in the staff reports that were provided along with the materials. Whether it was specifically highlighted in staff's presentation, I would have to go back and check on that.
Huh. This would be an outlier when I look at it. It should be probably emphasized on. That's what I was thinking. If council knew that, it's a different story. But if they don't know, what do we do moving forward to make sure that it's highlighted?
I do like the idea of an advisory committee on setbacks.
I had a question or clarification. So the setback, how does that affect the public right of way? How close is it to the public right of way? Like, how constraining, I guess, is it to future improvements? Just so I have an understanding.
It was the variance that was granted on the setback was 20 feet. So the city requirement was 36 feet, but it was approved with a 20-foot variance, so it's 16 feet away from the public right of way.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
What would a moratorium look like?
Maybe a related question to that too is, would that be within our purview? An advisory communication as it pertains to the transportation impacts makes sense to me. I, maybe being new, I'm confused of like, do setbacks and whatnot fall within our purview, or is that planning?
Setbacks technically would fall under planning, but to your point, the commission is certainly free to comment on how that impacts the transportation.
And specifically the bike and ped. I mean, that's why we would do it.
Right.
A question for you, when you say setback, does that mean like moving with the street? Or?
The setback refers to how far away an edge of the building can be from the, either from the right of way or from the curb. So the city has certain requirements based on our zoning that dictate how close buildings can be, not only commercial or multifamily properties like this, but it applies to single family homes as well.
And did I hear her right that the delivery vehicles and things like that were parking in the bike lane.
Yeah,
That's the concern.
That
is
was our concern too with this.
Yeah.
And that was the concern that the Planning Commission and the Transportation Commission voiced and were reflected in the memos.
So how many of these, setbacks, I mean, I'll call them outliers, have we approved in the past? But that will help gauge a moratorium or not.
I don't know, but I could ask Gary Teague.
Okay. Yeah, that would be good to know if possible.
So it sounds like with our discussion, one option would be to make a motion for moving forward to make a advisory communication of some sort. I don't believe we have to draft to do that now, but we could be agreeing to move forward with it. Is that what I'm hearing? What are people wanting to do?
It seems that that's our one option would be to draft them. I mean, because the plan is already approved, right? There's no other action
Correct.
to take. In which case, yes, I like the idea of
Forward to avoid,
at least,
make something better. in the
at least
future.
trying to come up with what that advisory communication would look like. We may or may not know yet what it, what it will say until we try and draft it.
I know this email came in yesterday and I didn't have time to look at it, so there's a lot of important points in here, so I don't want to.
And her photos are not included in the attachment. I noticed.
And their presentation was good, and it has more depth and breadth than the email. I think it sort of calls the question very well.
I ran into Julie on Wednesday morning and she started telling me about this.
I see.
And I said, that sounds like the exact same one we were concerned about.
Yeah, you're right.
Delivery trucks stopping in the bike lane. And I encouraged her to then come for the public comment period here.
So this is the large construction going on the south side of Valley View right now.
Correct.
yeah. The thing is, she has a lot of valid points. Very few of them actually pertain to the Transportation Commission.
Mhm.
That one does, the bike and the
Right.
setbacks as it relates to and
Right.
where delivery vehicles stop as it relates to bike and ped areas.
Yeah,
But all of the zoning, I mean, those aren't ours to deal with. And I think, you know, I think she's right about so many of them, but they're not ours to deal with.
yeah, it feels like if we're going to do a advisory recommendation, at the risk of being too narrow on it, it should pertain to the things within our purview.
Right.
Yes.
Specifically around respecting the prior comments pertaining to bike and ped infrastructure.
Right.
And I'm at a loss for the creative words, but that seems squarely within our purview.
Right.
I feel like we might be overreaching by saying we, the group tasked with transportation related matters, are making broad statements about setbacks across the whole city, across all
Or about
projects.
the-
That just seems.
Yeah, or about the density on a parcel size. It's like, you know, I wouldn't want the council to dismiss the whole thing because we overreached.
Right, like we should make our point,
Right.
say, I wasn't here at the point the original concerns are raised. They sound familiar to me living in the neighborhood, but we could put something forward that says something about the ped infrastructure, the bike infrastructure, deliveries. I don't know how to
Right,
phrase that,
right.
so. Andrew, if we put forward what do we have to do now versus what can we work on?
So, point of order first, I think this is good discussion, but as a reminder that this item is not on the agenda right now. So I might suggest that either conversation continue during chair and member comments.
Okay. Or
The commission can certainly talk more about this at a future meeting.
Okay. That feels prudent for everybody to read.
Yeah.
The materials and have dedicated time for it.
And go over there.
Exactly.
Sounds good to go over there and see it.
But also,
She has,
There.
she has the.
Sorry, Commissioner Kane has,
Yeah, not also go there because I think an advisory for me, I think is premature. We have to first identify if there are other areas where we have this, walk through it along with this spot with solid data, because the Planning Commission has done a lot of work through this. We identify a few of these gaps, okay? When they brought the item to us, along with council knew all of this. I think we should probably walk through the Gamba or the place where this is happening and also benchmark other areas. Then we reconvene and figure out with solid data if we need to write an advisory communication based on facts, our own facts.
That seems logical. Let's pick this up in the member comments and then have a short action plan on it.
oops, I need to share my screen.
And thank you, Mindy, for helping to bring in community inputs, because that's our job.
And sorry, I was
Very
late.
good.
Somehow
Yeah.
thought we were at Public Works.
You must have realized soon enough, because you still made it.
Yes, fortunately, I didn't ride my bike. I drove the car, so I could get that too.
Okay. So I'm sorry, I was at the door when we started this one. Could we redo whatever we did?
We didn't do anything.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So the section A, this request for crosswalk on Valley View. Discussion on this one.
Staff agrees.
Yeah.
All's good.
Recall, this was one where we had previously studied it. The commission recommended reviewing it when school was in session.
And did the recommendation change based on studying it when school was?
Warrants were met the second time, so yes.
Great, thank you.
Good job, everybody. Oh, section B already. Okay, request to improve a stop sign awareness, Browndale, Edgebrook Place. That's. Staff recommends no changes, and is that close to where you live, Jill?
I don't know where Edgebrook is.
This is
Pull up one of your fancy maps, please, Ingrid.
right here. So Browndale's two-way, Edgebrook is one-way southbound. It's essentially a two-way stop because traffic can only enter Edgebrook on the north side.
And I presume that adequate site distance, does that mean they made sure that there weren't any tree branches or anything like that?
Yes, correct.
I've just been noticing lots of them in other cities, not in Edina.
So is it the opinion of staff that the stop signs are fully visible?
The stop signs are fully visible. Pardon? I know it says, yeah.
They're fully
Yes,
visible.
staff's opinion that they're sufficiently visible.
Okay, yeah.
I would have to say there's a lot of aggressive drivers in that.
And the
area.
traffic study that was performed in May shows that less than 6% of vehicles entering the intersection are not stopping, which we felt is a satisfactory compliance rate. We also noticed that 50% of those people that are not stopping are turning into Edgebrook Place. So they're likely residents or visitors.
Okay.
Did anybody have points to bring up for any of the D points?
Can you scroll back up a little bit, Andrew? Thank you. I just wanted to see the tree trimming. Oh, okay.
Okay,
No other comments?
yeah,
I have a question. What is EDP or EPD stand?
Edina Police Department.
Oh,
Hey, Andrew, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I think I was muted and talking. I had a question about D6. If there's any other information about why the resident was requesting increased police presence at the crossing? Was there an incident or, you know, a crash there or anything, or?
I
I'm
don't
gonna
recall.
repeat the question just because some of us hardly heard. So I think, Chris, you're asking why the resident was reporting this given the higher pedestrian volumes? Is that it?
Yes. Yeah. Am I not coming through clearly?
No, I heard you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was, I just was wondering if there was a crash or some sort of other impetus for the request.
Not that I'm aware of, but I can check with Nick Baller on that.
Thanks.
Okay, is that the end, the D6 page there, or D13?
13.
Do we need a motion to move on, approve the report as is?
Nope, we can just move on if no one has any other comments.
Okay. Good discussion.
Wait, actually, sorry.
So the rest of the meeting is all about our work plan updates and then the rest of it, I think. Thank you, Andrew, for keeping the agenda focused. I appreciate it.
Of course. Now if I could just figure out, there we go.
Can I do a sound check for those of you joining remotely? Are you able to hear us okay?
Yes.
Yes.
I can hear you, no problem.
Oh, very good. Just because of the way the speaker is in the room here at the other end here, sometimes we might ask to repeat something. So we're planning organized trash collection. Jill?
Yes, organized trash. And so we had a meeting on July 26th, a small subcommittee meeting, to determine next steps and to review how we want to present the reports. And there was a couple of ideas thrown out. And then I contacted Andrew and there was kind of a template, a protocol. So what I had done in writing the report that a few of you received today is synthesize kind of what Vantage had already done with resources that I had looked at, and came up with economic benefits, environmental benefits, community stance. There were some things in the Vantage report that I did feel important was to throw out. And so if they had anecdotal evidence of something from a news article or a business journal that was online, a lot of the data that were shown in those articles didn't have any citations. They were just kind of stated. And so a lot of newspaper articles and magazine articles were tossed out. So largely the information has come from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, along with a couple of reports from St. Paul or city reports. So waiting to hear back feedback on that, so we can move forward. We are meeting, I do want to discuss this, with the EEC on Monday, because Andrew was contacted regarding them, and I'm unclear on this, taking over the initiative, because can you expound on that?
Sure. So the commission may recall the work plan initiative this year, regarding organized trash collection, the ETC is leading the initiative and the Energy and Environment Commission has a review and comment role. What the EEC is proposing for next year is that in terms of the next step of this initiative, they want to lead it and have the ETC be the review and commenter on it, if the ETC is interested in continuing the initiative.
For what reason?
Yeah. Yes.
They are very strongly vested in the issue and they want to include it in their work plan.
So I guess, how do you feel about that? And we're meeting with them on Monday to discuss, writing up the initiative for 2022. Anyone?
Well, I guess so if both of our commissions are heavily invested in it, care deeply about it, is there a better commission to lead it? And does it matter, I guess, is the question. Does it matter who leads it?
And
And maybe we can
can a subcommittee or a task force include people from two commissions? Is there a model that lets both commissions equally attend all meetings? That's,
Yeah, but
when I hear review and comment, that sounds to me like they make all the decisions, they write up a report, then they send it to us kind of at the end of the whole process.
You know,
Actually,
there's-
it's been the opposite.
There's a
I've
precedent
been
for that.
writing reports to send to them, for
Right.
them to review and comment, which actually puts more work on our commission so they can hear about it.
But have they been actively involved in the process up to this point?
No, in terms of research or writing it.
Bruce
no.
has.
There is a precedent for this. We worked
Yeah.
on the TDM policy.
Uh-huh.
There were two members from the planning commission that joined us. So see, I think your idea is a good one.
Okay.
And where it sits, I don't know if it matters so much, but for us to have a seat at the table rather than a seat apart from the table is a good one.
I think the reality is there's a lot of background and research to do that each group can use its talents and focus to build a good. So.
Yeah.
And I thought it was very good when we worked with the planning commission on the TDM thing, didn't you guys think?
I do, yes.
So I love that this is a cross-commission initiative. It really makes less sense to me that we would that we would say, okay, you guys lead it. We've done all the background work on it. You guys lead it now. It's like, we can bring them up to speed on it, but I think we've got the more history with it at this point, more information, more understanding. And we'd love for them to be absolutely a part of it, but unless nobody on this commission actually wants to lead it and do the work, in which case, let's let them have it. I mean, that's kind of how I see it.
Also, I think from if it's not us, I think you're right. We're sort of invested in it already, thanks to you. But where do you think it affects transportation more or energy and environment?
Both.
In both.
That's why I think.
Yeah, I know. Is it 50-50 or is it 55-45 or?
So as an example, Andrew had cameras put up at an intersection I can't remember
Like,
the address,
neighborhood.
where they filmed on a garbage morning, how many trucks were were on one corner, and there was 50 garbage trucks.
How many?
50
Oh, I forgot.
garbage trucks.
Oh, it's just terrible.
Where you could have the recycling, the garbage and the organics, it go down to 3. And so that's a huge transportation issue.
Yeah, and I would say, so argues, to me, it sort of sounds like it's more a transportation problem we're trying to solve than an environment problem. Because you'd say too many trucks, too much, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, sorry.
Wear and tear on the streets, living streets. I do think it's more, so I think it's an environmental benefit to have organized trash collection, but I think it solves transportation problems.
Yeah.
Or something
I'm
like that.
persuaded by that. Yeah, I think it's more than 50% transportation problem than it is, discharge of too many trucks, tailpipes.
The other reason I think that's important is eventually it will also go to public comment and public input. And to be able to frame it, I think, as a transportation issue might be easier to explain to the public. That using it as an environmental issue, I think invokes more emotion and less data.
Yeah.
Might actually be a benefit in terms of.
Quantify more transportation
Public.
aspects of this than the environmental, even though the research can help us show quantifications. It's just like with the cameras, we have neighborhood data.
Yeah, that'd be very powerful.
Yeah.
I do think the biggest thing is going to be one of economics, which is neither transportation or immigrants.
You mean
I think it's gonna be
economic
dollars.
savings?
Savings, yes.
Yeah, I loved your report.
I think that's gonna be the
Yeah,
number one thing.
The savings from the perspective of maintenance, road.
That's a side, that's a
Well,
side
actually, that's a side benefit. So the savings would come from, so you have, we'll say the 6 haulers, they have to bid
Right,
and they have to give you a price per volume of garbage, which is set across the board. In an open system, I can pay twice as much as Mindy for the same can. And I mean, never know.
and plus from taking that one step further, as I know you've talked about before, is it's far cheaper for one truck to go here, so arguably our cost should be much lower.
Yeah, and so they would get their market share, but then they get a quadrant of the city, so they would be doing what, a 10th, even the 20th of the distance, and with the lack of,
Okay,
yeah,
so I think we're all,
I think we're persuaded.
right.
It's
and-
more than 50%
collaboration is good, but we should continue leading it.
Now that you approach it as this is a collaboration, when they originally were emailing, it kind of felt like a takeover. It wasn't like,
Totally. I think like, what?
I'm like, what? That's like, and so I'm curious to say, on Monday, it's like, well, what are you going to bring that we haven't already thought about or already have the data for? Because I only put data in for this initiative, and we already have more data than that to move forward.
So,
So I only
so
answered the
Jill, I agree with you on that point, but I think it's stronger to say, we reviewed the intent here, and it's more about transportation and throw in the cost thing than it is about the environment. And that's what we'd like to lead with. I think we could stay
Yeah.
there and just,
Also-
but then propose a interdisciplinary.
I think it's good that it's interdisciplinary.
Yes.
As long as we stay the lead commission on it. I mean, it just baffles me that they would, oh, we love that one that you have, and it's environmental too, so we want it.
So I would take it as positive. They care deeply too. They want
Which
to
is
cooperate
great.
and
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah.
So,
Jill,
Yes, Booker.
have you shared any of this work with the EEC chairman or chairwoman?
well, we had a midpoint report that I briefly wrote up, and at that point, Vantage, the Minnetonka high schoolers were still collecting data, and they gave us, what they had at that point. But in terms of the final report, that's still being drafted within our own subcommittee. And so, I mean, that potentially could be done relatively soon where we could present it or, get handed over to the EEC to see what they think.
Because I spoke to the chair of EEC, I think about 10 days ago, and she mentioned she was interested in seeing what's in that. And I promised her that I was going to put her in touch with you, but it slipped my mind. But I think that's a good start first. I don't think this issue would reside on either transportation or energy and environment. I think a more collaborative approach, a win-win for Edina, is a better approach, regardless who runs it, as long all the attributes we're looking for from a transportation point are covered. So that's how I look at it, vice versa. As a team as opposed to it's mine or theirs.
I think I did 50% of
Andrew,
that.
can you summarize? We can't hear back here.
Yeah.
It's the,
We can't-
it's the noise and the, white noise and the
Oh.
speaker is too.
Yes, there anyways, the speakers.
And for you folks that are at home or whatever, if you could lean in towards your microphone when you're talking, because we lose you.
Okay, well, so what I was saying, I
That's
spoke
better.
to you got everything I said about the chair of the ECC that I ran into?
Yes, we got that. You ran into our,
Yeah, the approach to me should be more of how do you work together as two commissions like we did before with Lori, myself, and Mindy and others. So it's just a win-win. So that's what we're looking for. As long all the issues or attributes we're looking for from the transportation aspect are covered and addressed, doesn't matter who owns it. Okay, if the EEC owns it, great. If you own it, great. As long it's a win-win for the community. Did you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
perfect.
What, so so this deliverable, that's what you're finishing now, right?
Yes,
So here's a question. Can you invite them in now before the report is done? And then in some sense, it might create more strength in impetus for the city to take it
Yeah.
seriously because two commissions are.
I think
Or
once I
advancing
get comments from everyone, it can be easily incorporated by Monday. That's when the meeting is, and then I have, what's the protocol for that? Do I have to get your permission to show them or?
So I was gonna ask the commission on this because I know some of you have seen the report, but not all of you have seen the draft report so far. Does the nature of the initiative doesn't necessarily dictate when they have the opportunity to review and comment, or how many times they get the opportunity to. So there's nothing necessarily to say that you couldn't share the draft report with them now for comments.
Okay,
Or you could wait for the rest of the commission to see it, weigh in on it, before they review it.
I'm fine with
But-
showing them if everyone else, and then,
I
but
think
we
it's-
still have to show our commission before, obviously, and maybe with their edited points.
I think it's a good strategy. Frankly,
Okay.
that's where I was going with that, is
Okay.
you lose nothing, you are still submitting it, we are still submitting it.
Okay,
And we made it interdisciplinary earlier rather than later. So it'd be stronger, I think.
And in either case, the ETC has to approve the final report before it goes to council.
Yeah,
So
okay. That makes sense.
so we finish up maybe a few, clean up places, show it to them on Monday, have the conversation and kind of go from there. Because I am interested in seeing, are they believing that we missed something, or I'm interested in their
Probably it's
approach.
just this cool
Like-
project. It's like everyone goes, that's a great idea.
I think the EEC has actually wanted to talk about this for years.
I think you're
For
right.
years, and they've never been able to get the conversation going.
Oh.
Thus, my reasoning that I think it will be stronger coming from transportation, because I think it's been the concern of pushback from the public is why the EEC has not
Oh.
addressed it, has not found the right way to address it.
I agree with you, Mindy. I think that
So I
makes
think
sense.
now they might just be worried that they weren't getting enough input, and by inviting them to provide have a more active role as we continue this into next
Yeah.
year,
Mhm.
I think. it's
Asking for a couple members
seems
to
like
join
the
our committee is good.
The perfect way to
And
do it.
also there's there might be a strategy that the more rough it is when they come in, the more they'll feel ownership and like a part of it. And that might be I would think it would be a good thing.
The bottom line is, we would love for it to be an item on their work plan, but not the lead. I mean, it should be an item on their work plan.
Or
It
with the
should
work
be an item on
plan,
our work plan as the lead, but we want them to be.
Yeah, so theirs would
Be
say
invested.
participate in an
Yes, but-
interdisciplinary work group.
it has to be something
So-
different. It can't be, and we're gonna bird dog another commission. They themselves have to produce something to bring it together.
Yeah, so it'll be a good conversation on Monday to say, what would your part be? What is it that you would be producing that would add to this, to the collective movement forward? Something like that.
We should come to this meeting.
I can't, I'll be at the cabin, so.
But I have to say, I agree with you, but I have a slightly different viewpoint on it, that, to have a bigger tent and not sort of challenge them, what are you gonna bring to the table? Say, yeah, we'd love you to come to the table because we assume that you have great things you can contribute. Join our group this project that we're leading.
And help us, what do you think you
Right.
can bring that we've missed? Because we'd love to have you bring that. No, I didn't
Right.
mean it as a challenge.
No, I don't think Bruce has seen these emails. Because it really has been like, and now we're going to take over.
So we're gonna very
So we
gracefully,
took over.
so we very gracefully say,
Yeah,
we love the idea of you joining our project.
right, yeah, totally get it.
Yeah, but we're
So-
keeping it.
Yeah, that's the undertone, that's the thing, yeah.
It was our ball to begin with.
Yes, come on over, we're meeting at 5.
I think I'm gonna loop MJ into the conversation to see what her thoughts are on maybe perhaps there's a way to split the initiative somehow, so both commissions are participating in it equally or at levels that they feel are appropriate. But it sounds to me like if the commission wants to proceed with it, then you should proceed with it.
Also,
Ultimately, council will review, see all the work plan proposals, and they'll decide.
this is obviously a decision of the city, but to split it,
Sure.
I think would be less good than to have two committees, two commissions working together.
When you did the TDM, was it on the planning commission's work plan? Or was it just?
It was
that
on
we-
ours. But we, did
You
we,
just
it was
have
on the
to-
work plan and we just, no, I think it says the fourth.
It was on both.
It was on
Yeah,
both.
so back at a time when the city did cross-commission initiatives, the city kind of went away from that because there were a lot of concerns about scheduling meetings and things like that. So that's why this scenario is kind of what the city replaced cross-commission initiatives with, where one commission is the lead, the other commission is in a review and comment role.
Okay, well, that's all they cut, I guess.
That's fine. Thank you. That explains why this is different now.
But hopefully they'll feel better about it if they have a seat at the table.
Yeah, but you also have to remember they've always been interested in this since Caroline Jackson was a chair. This is not new, so onboarding them ahead of time so they are part of the stakeholders is the best way to do this. Then they'll give you the ideas, you move on with it. It just has to be cross-functional. It's for the city, not for ETC or EEC.
Anything more on this initiative?
I have one question, one more. Is it possible to actually, or does the city have rates for the individual haulers, their charging rates? Is that public?
I don't know, but I can ask.
Great, thank you.
Otherwise, post that next door for who has this hauler? Who has
Yeah.
this
That's
hauler?
how, like, that's how other cities have gotten that
Yeah.
information, is they had to get a survey where people actually just said, this is what I'm being.
I just want to mention that I had coffee with Carolyn Jackson, actually she had lemonade, but she's super excited about this. And she comes from environment, so, you know,
That was her plan.
I know that there's a lot of momentum about this, and I will touch base with her about, you know, cross commission work, but that we'd like to stay lead, just so she has that lead. But I think the council's ready for this too.
Okay. Thanks, Jill. Next is street funding. We're done.
Yes, this initiative is complete. I just wanted to give the commission an update that council approved a revision to the assessment policy that will transition away from special assessments for street recon over the next 16 years. So there's more information available on the Better Together page for the street funding task force, but that change has been approved and is effective immediately.
Okay, that's great.
I was not able to attend the last meeting. I have your email pulled up with the points, but would you like to just cover what your observations were?
Certainly. So our advisory committee met on August 4th. Ridership is steady around 10 riders a week, which is still below pre-COVID levels, but according to DARTS is consistent with ridership. Proportionally, it's comparable to ridership levels of the other loops that they operate throughout the cities. I've provided some more bus passes to the senior center for them to distribute at events. And I'm working with communications to create an updated brochure with the route and the schedule on the back that we can provide at city facilities.
What's the cost per ride?
$3.
That's what the pay,
Yes.
the cost to the citizens. How much does it cost us to provide one?
The city pays $25,000 per year for the service.
And then you have calculations too, that currently our fare box revenue is just under 11% of that total cost.
Correct.
So we're currently with the collecting in fares about 2,700.
So 10 per week times, but 10 per week times 50 weeks is. What's that? Yeah. $3 is 1,500. So 1,500, 25,000.
Yeah, 2,700 was at the full 18 ridership that we were at pre-COVID.
So the peak at our peak ridership, we would have covered 11%, and you're right, we're under that right now. Yeah, and that's my only question about it is, how do you measure the value of it, you know? Knowing what it costs us as a city, and at what point do we still have full support of council that essentially we're paying for this service and not recuperating much, but I think that's true of
So
transit in general, you tend to pay for, but this is lower than what like Metro transit would usually.
So a little at current ridership is a little below $50 per our cost. And maybe 45. And then full ridership would go 25-ish per ride. We'd have to check the math on that, but I think it's always helpful in our reports to think, hey, this is a great thing, you know, the cost and the benefit, Yeah, that's the big thing, I guess. What it costs per ride.
Sure.
What?
And many of the riders are regular riders. They're repeat, I mean, it's like,
We don't have the hard data to confirm that, but anecdotally, that's what the drivers have said, yes.
so if you think about that, the services that it's providing for a certain group of people that ride it regularly, they are really relying on that service. So the question is, how do you increase the number of people that are using it that regularly? That's the magic question.
Yes. Any comments on traffic safety reports? Capital improvement projects, I have a few updates. The Eden Avenue project, as some of you might be aware, Eden Avenue between Sherwood and Arcadia is closed to through traffic until the end of October for construction. Drivers are encouraged to use the posted detour route along Arcadia, Gus Young, and Vernon. Our contractor has begun grading out a new shared use path along Highlands Park. And they're expected to pave that trail next week. On the proposed shared use path on McCully Trail, our topographic survey has been completed and staff's working with adjacent property owners and our design consultant to review impacts and consider alignment options for that route. Last week, I sent a letter to property owners along Olinger Boulevard about a proposed sidewalk that's in the 2022 budget. And I've received a lot of feedback on impacts and the alignment. So staff will continue to communicate with those adjacent property owners and consider alignments that will reduce impacts while still serving the transportation needs of the community.
Andrew, where are you on the sidewalk on east side of France between 58th and 54th?
That sidewalk is also it's kind of split between 23 or 22, 23, 24. But I've started a conversation with Hennepin County about if there's an option to move curb line in to provide a boulevard or minimize impacts. We haven't started topo survey or anything of that. I expect that will start next year.
For some reason, I thought that was this summer when you're doing the roads on the other side of the creek there.
We had considered doing the piece from 57th North as part of the Creek Knoll project, but
That's what I mean.
ultimately we decided to postpone it and try and do it as part of the rest of the sidewalk projects.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that. I thought it was this year.
Regarding traffic impact studies, I'm expecting a study for 7300 Bush Lake Road, which is Minnesota Made Hockey. They're interested in building a new training facility. So just last week, helped scope out the proposal for that. So we're expecting a study from them, which I'll share with the commission.
So Andrew, to connect that and Julie, if we're doing this, and we don't know if when the presentation goes to the council, if any of the comments that you or we make actually get reflected in that, how do we close that loop so that we actually know that when we do this work and we raise concerns, that it actually makes it through to the council? Because otherwise, it's like, what's the point of doing the work then?
That's a good point. I guess I would suggest that as a topic to just, it's later on, I know we have this later on the agenda, but I would suggest that as a question to bring up at the upcoming joint work session with council. I think it's a great question to ask, to ask council what, if anything, the commission can do to make those points heard more, or if they have, or if they
We
have,
just don't know, I
Right.
guess.
right. I guess the only other thing I could say is that for the commissioners to follow the public hearings and council meetings to see what discussions are had and how the decisions are made.
So just following this along in the order that we're supposed to produce it. So we're supposed to go to that work session with a work plan already, right?
You're talking about the September 9th one?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
So the upcoming joint work session is typically held earlier in the year, and it's usually kind of a mid-year check-in.
Yeah.
To talk about, give an update or seek additional feedback on initiatives that the commission is currently working on. Because this one is later in the year, you have the opportunity to do that as well as seek guidance on developing your future work plan.
Okay. All right, that would be helpful.
Mouse.
All right. First and foremost, Andrew, appreciate the data that you shared with me. So the maps were sent to Bokar and Andy, and we can plan a time in the next couple of weeks to meet and discuss those, any gaps that we see as it relates to the future transit network. So I reached out separately to make sure I didn't have any issues with quorum communications, but we can plan to either meet virtually or in person, whichever I'll feel comfortable with.
Did you hear him okay?
Barely.
Barely.
Could you repeat that maybe just a little louder?
Yeah, I'm wearing a headset, so I don't know. I'm confused why I'm coming in.
When you spoke up, it was really clear to us. So maybe you just
Okay.
talk extra loud.
There's ambient noise in the room. I think that makes it a little difficult in the back.
Got it. Okay. Sorry. I'll talk loud. I just was saying, first and foremost, Andrew, thanks for sending the data over. Appreciate that. And so I sent maps of the existing and proposed sidewalk network, multi-use trail network, and on-street bicycle network, along with the transit lines and the quarter mile and 1 mile boundaries, or sorry, half mile and 1 mile boundaries around the BRT and LRT respectively. So Bokar, Andy, and I will meet in the next couple of weeks and discuss either virtually or in person and gaps and recommendations. And I can send those over to Andrew then before the next commission meeting so we can discuss those as a broader group.
Thank you, Chris.
That's what I want. I just want to share my screen. Just brings us to work plan development.
So, while we bring this up, I wanted to thank everybody that took ownership to prepare a draft. Everybody did, so. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the work on that.
So these are the draft initiatives that were sent to me. The first page, or the first 4 of them are included in the packet. The last 3 were emailed to me after that packet was published.
So should we just go through these and focus on if the main content is good? And then would it make sense to go back and look at if the sequencing or priority is something we weigh in on? And then finally, even though we know who prepared these, do we also, like a third point, talk about who would lead it in the future?
Yes, those are all certainly things you can discuss. I think would be helpful. Keep in mind that the final work plan proposal has to be approved at the end of before the end of your next meeting.
Okay.
So you only have one more meeting to discuss.
So I propose we go through these and then if we can make some notes, like for the current leaders, these people may or may not lead it in the future, but they're certainly pulling it together. So if we could go through and suggest if there's any group suggestions on wording or updates, then the lead can take notes and then make that update and then perhaps have a time schedule of when they come back out to the group before next time. How does that sound?
Good.
Should we just practice that with boulevard tree policy? You want to talk us through, Lori, we can put together? Thank you.
Sure. Well, I'll just read it to you. Research, develop, and propose a citywide policy regarding boulevard tree planting, maintenance, removal, and protection of public boulevard trees. And I did in the thing I sent Andrew, I actually did put staff time in there. It's not reflected up there, so I'm not sure why. I put 4 hours a month of consult time with the city forester.
Oh, that's usually a field that staff fills in. That's,
Oh, okay.
I didn't see it in there because I wasn't looking for it.
Oh, okay, all right. Anyway, and that the deliverable is actually a tree policy. I'm not sure if it's an ordinance. I think it's probably a policy for consideration by the city council. I'm kind of at a place, I have to just tell you this because because you can tell me to back off. I'm at a place where I want us to be delivering hard-hitting stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I want us to deliver a tree policy. I want us to give a proposal about what organized trash collection should be, for example. And, you know, I want us to do stuff. So.
I think that's a good thing for all of us.
Yeah,
to keep in mind.
yep.
I think we
do
got
stuff.
It's a good reminder.
Should be our mantra.
In that vein, should it be more than just boulevard trees?
Well, because of transportation, I didn't feel like we could step into the broader thing. I will say that was a heavy topic that Carolyn and I talked about for almost an hour, is the whole rest of it. And there's more to come on that, but our piece of it, I think, is boulevard trees.
I had a quick question.
For us to understand what boulevard definition is, because maybe different people have different understanding. Maybe if you're talking with Carolyn on the research you did, you could tell us what boulevard exactly is.
Well, so I think that that's part of the research.
Okay.
Piece of this. That's why I said research, because, you know, Andrew sent us the ordinances, I think, from those. Most of you didn't attend the tree panel. It was super interesting with really great tree programs in various, I mean, one in north of Chicago, one in Washington State. Anyway, they were great. And they have like pages and pages of programs and ordinances and all that. So that's why it's like, well, that's part of the research.
Okay.
To figure out what do we mean by, and as, for example, does boulevard mean that it's this area and then a sidewalk and then the public thing? Or does it mean actually right along the streets, you know, in the public right of way?
Okay.
I think that's all part of the thing.
I know there's a comment or question on our remote attendees. Can you say that again? And I think I talked over you, sorry.
No, I just had one question. Besides boulevards, I was just gonna ask a question about off-street trail corridors, and one, if the city has those that are applicable where there's trees along there that could also be included besides just along public roadways, was my question.
Sorry, I missed some of that.
The,
Trail corridors.
Oh.
is the question whether we have off-street trail corridors?
Yeah, where there's trees planted along those trail corridors that would also be applicable to
I
this
like it,
review.
Because that would.
You're on the committee, Chris. You could lead it.
Yeah.
That would be, I mean, like our park paths, those are, I mean, not necessarily tree lined, they're more just built, within the trees.
Sure, yeah, I guess I was just thinking multimodally, though it's not along a public roadway, it's still regarding pedestrians and bicyclists, and that is perhaps under our purview. So that was just another thought.
Cool.
Yep.
Anyway, that's what I got.
I had one question. There's a mention of maintenance and then protection.
Yep.
And those are specifically different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, it sounds to me like this is good to go. If nobody has any comments, we can leave it in here. And then, Lori, did you have comments about or thoughts about the lead for next year? Like if you would be willing to do it or.
I am willing to do it unless somebody wants to, unless somebody has more passion than I do it, which I'm completely open to. I'm a tree hugger, you guys.
I do not have more passion to lead it, but I definitely would be like to help you.
Okay, real good.
I'd love to be involved in it because my parents got really involved in the Wooddale Boulevard tree policy when that was going on. So
Awesome.
yeah, no, I got really involved in that. So
That's awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah,
Great.
super.
I do not have the capacity to lead, but I can contribute from, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Very good.
Yeah, I can contribute in the lens of equity and diversity. Maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, I was listening to NPR and it talked about how there is such a difference in neighborhoods with green tree coverage in the neighborhood. And there is definitely the marginalized communities don't have as much coverage as those who are very wealthy, such as the country club, and they can put up a fight against the city if a tree is to be cut down, or if they want more shade, they can. And it is a major contribution to climate change. So, and the marginalized community get impacted more. So anyway, I would like to contribute my share on that.
Love to have
perspective.
you. That's awesome. Thank you.
That might fall under some of what Julie was presenting in her comments. When you think about setbacks and what can be put in them, that may be where the tree policy also has an impact.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, excellent. And the next is organized trash collection. We had some good discussion on it already. And Jill, did you want to give some highlights of this?
Sure. When I submitted this, I knew that this was going to be evolving and changing even after this meeting.
Yeah.
And so in my opinion, in the deliverable, I mean, how many years do we have to look at this before? I mean, it's punching us in the face that I don't understand why we haven't done this. I mean, can the deliverable be council acts and the engineers do it? I don't know. Like, how do we make this like real?
Is that a review and recommend?
So yeah, if you're looking for council to take direct action, you could phrase it as a review and recommend. That doesn't guarantee that it's going to get approved that way.
Wait a minute, so it goes, so at the end of this year, there's a report with an action recommendation to the city council, and they act or they don't act,
Correct.
right? And so if they act, then I thought that might not be a bad role. What do we do now once they've said we're gonna do it? Do we have any role in the transition to educate people and create community buy-in, or is that someone else that does that? I don't know.
So for 2022 then?
Well, this is for 2022, right?
Right, and so I was just thinking like, I started with the deliverable as opposed to the actual initiative, the words for it, so, and it's already changed in the report here, so one, ask what other cities are doing, what the process is,
I
pros
like
and cons, and, you know, realized reality of it all. And then, what was it? I'm gonna have to do what I wrote. Getting old. Oh, yeah, distributing the trash survey. And so through Vantage, we had developed a survey to send out, and they had originally wanted to send it out through Nextdoor. But there was a city protocol for that, and so we couldn't actually send the survey. But there are, you know, questions prompted that could be sent out once approved. And it would just be on trash collection alone.
Mhm.
So those two things. So say you get your survey results and just hypothetically, it's overwhelmingly in support of, right? And then we get information from Richfield and Bloomington, who are the most recent converters to organize trash. How to take that information to the council for them to say, yes, it's actually beyond the commission now and the city will handle it.
Yeah,
Yes.
so what if it were
Yes.
something like research, which includes public survey and, you know, neighboring communities. And, you know, so research and develop an organized trash recommendation for the councils.
Oh, I see. So I thought at end of 2021 with our current deliverable, I thought they would make a go, no go.
No.
Okay, this is just to
Yeah.
educate them
We
so
haven't
far.
engaged the other cities or there's
Got
still
it.
other
So-
data that needs.
So they're just,
See, I think 2021 is the evidence
right,
that we need to do something about this. And so then I see 2022 is, what do we recommend? they
I
do?
understand. That makes a lot of sense. That's a much better timeline, really. And so then it is, so they don't make decisions then after your report, go or no go. Their go or no go is, this is worth developing.
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
So develop
This idea, propose.
recommendation. It's really a recommendation because it really would be staff that
Right.
would implement, figure it out.
What do you think about having this deliverable be halfway through the year instead of the end, just to make sure we don't get, I mean, why I'm saying this is we want to get to action sooner. We know we've got a lot of deep and broad information coming together this year. And so we make recommendations next year based on some more involvement, but do we need a whole year to do that? Maybe we could speed it up.
Good idea.
The answer is yes, I like that
You
idea.
And maybe the city can think about, maybe they want a consultant to help them transition to it, or maybe they, I don't know, start thinking about how they can make that part of their plans next year too. Instead of thinking that they get something at the end of the year.
So does all of that then make it a review and recommend?
So it would be review and recommend.
So you want to change the wording?
Research and
I have, I just was really rough, but
Recommend.
research and develop an organized trash recommendation for the council.
I like it that it's short and a little bit cryptic, so we
Yeah.
can put other things. in.
Yeah, well, and then we can take the time to sort of fill that out as
Right.
we move into the next couple of months, because research means a few different things.
Right.
Which we would want to do before we would make a recommendation.
And then maybe we don't want to include so much how we do it. Is it important to say that we'd be engaging with other neighborhood cities?
No, I don't think it is.
Okay.
See, I think that's part of the research. And so at the work session, when asked, that's great information for the council.
Let's perhaps then strike the engage
Yep.
section.
Because that to me, that could be part of the plan, like how do you engage a population to accept it or whatever, but you're talking about the actual proposal itself. We're gonna have, for example, we're gonna put out bids and the lowest bid gets the whole city, or as you mentioned a little while ago, put out bids and the 3 lowest will get each a third, or, sort of specifics like that, right?
I don't think we'd go into the bidding, no. I would think the research would be the survey and researching what other cities have done. I don't know if, again, that's in our scope to say, and this is how we're gonna allocate the city based on market share.
Oh, no, I just thought that, like, logical question would be, hey, are we gonna have one company do this? Are we gonna have more than one company do it?
See,
You actually,
go ahead.
you actually need more than one company, because then you will have a true problem with a monopoly. And so every hauler stays here.
Right,
They just get,
right. I was just using that, I say, as an
Right.
example
I
of,
think that's the depth that we would go to, is not to the actual bidding on it, but the recommendation that the city is now divided into quadrants or,
Yeah.
areas, that each area has 2 hauler, something like
right,
that.
so that's like meat on the bone, so that if I were just a citizen and can I read something about this? And then there would be enough meat to say,
Right.
yes.
oh, I get it, it won't be one company, okay. And it's gonna be this, it's likely to be lower based on this research, or I get that.
And
Okay.
it would be based on empirical evidence of what other communities have done and
Yeah.
the successes and failure, the things that did and didn't work.
And the recommendation will actually feed into the public awareness and
Right.
engagement
Yes.
program, which is the second part of what you.
Right.
And that's why I asked Andrew for the pricing for Edina, because Richfield and St. Paul's bids are public. So we have those. And for the organized versus our open, and I don't know how public we can make that, but it would certainly make a good point.
That sounds great. It's
Cool. I got a
sounds like you're
question.
gonna be doing stuff.
I know, I'm so excited about it.
I have a question. With the organized trash collection, will the surveys or engagement of community involve multi-housing as well? Or are they not a part of the organized collection part?
It's part of it,
That was
right?
multi-unit.
Multi-unit, I don't know, Andrew, do you know how the survey would? I mean, I'm assuming if they're a paying trash provider, they would be in the survey. If they live in like an owned unit,
In this case, yeah, I think, I know where you're going. In this case, it would be the landlord responding, because the landlord
Yeah.
picks up the cost for the
Right.
trash collection at a multi-family dwelling.
I know in other cities, multi-unit dwellings are commercial and
Right.
therefore they're like businesses
Oh, so
and
it's
therefore
different,
they
yeah.
do their own as opposed to going with whatever a city provided
Right.
structure would be.
And you
I
could,
don't know what the case is in Edina, if it's considered commercial, if it's a multi-unit dwelling.
I think we want to explore it, and the reason being is if we are going to sell an economic benefit to some residents, I mean, this is a portion that is passed on from the landlord to the tenants. So we may want to.
it would be worth.
Of our research.
Yeah, and looking at that option, because you're right, it would be nice to have everyone win from this.
Right.
Yeah,
Just to clarify, is the question, how does the city distribute surveys or how would the commission distribute a survey?
No, the question is, how is trash hauling regulated in multi-unit dwellings? Do they follow the regulations of whatever is established for commercial? Or do they follow whatever the regulations are for residential?
I understand. Thank you.
Yes.
I don't know. I'd have to ask.
I know in Minneapolis that multi-unit dwellings are considered commercial property and therefore they follow the rules for commercial trash hauling as opposed to residential.
Yeah, from Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And so I know you're gonna go over this later, but research and develop and organize trash collection. Rather than just organized trash, that would be less desirable than organized trash collection.
Oh, collection.
Oh, collection.
Good clarification.
Trash collection.
is,
And then the deliverable will be what, another
The recommendation.
I think it's a
The
proposal, it's actually a
recommendation.
proposal, right?
Yeah.
Or recommendation.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe it's probably report and recommendation.
Are you checking those green boxes too as we go in? The council charge.
The
Oh, there it is.
The initiative type I am, the council charge, that
Okay.
is something that Scott and Neil will determine.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And what thoughts on lead for this? We can exchange it, but. No, maybe Jill wants to, or maybe Jill wants to not do it, so.
Yeah. Well, I've certainly read a lot on it.
We could put peer pressure on it.
If you like it,
I think you've been doing a great job, so.
Yeah, I am happy to take lead, but I'm also happy to ask for help.
I'll help.
Once I'm in over my head.
Yeah, I like
I'll
that
help.
too.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of us on help.
So Jill for now?
Yeah.
So for now, actually, can you just put for now?
Jill for now. That's awesome.
And then I might ask this a few times as it comes up, but completion dates always feels late to me for a December. I don't want no later than
June.
November, for example.
I was
If
gonna
not
say,
sooner.
I was gonna say September,
Yeah.
like before school starts or something like that. I mean, I know it won't be implemented at that point, but you know.
For the recommendation, I mean, we're getting
With
pretty
a
close.
goal of taking it to council in September.
Right.
Is that consensus?
Yeah, September.
Yeah.
And if we get it done earlier,
During-
then it's earlier.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, looking good.
Yeah.
Staff hours?
He does that.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, you just need to worry about what's in the white box.
and you're up.
So this was a B or a 2 priority. I forget which nomenclature we're using on micromobility, but I figured I'd put something together and then we could say like, yeah, nice idea. Table it or let's move forward. So a bit of it was backward looking to say, we've done micromobility stuff before, shared mobility. Andrew, you have a good suggestion on language. Maybe shared mobility. And looking at, okay, we've considered it before, we've piloted programs before, we've stopped them. So what did we learn from that? And then what is the trend in neighboring communities, right? Minneapolis has continued with bike, with scooter, some of those things. I don't, admittedly, part of the research would be to say, what is Richfield doing? What is Bloomington doing? Are they considering some of the same things? Maybe we tag team if we're talking to them, organized trash, we talk to them about this too. And maybe I don't feel as strongly, it depends on the research, I suppose, about saying, we are going to go to council to say they need to put forward a, an RFP for services again, or maybe probably something a little bit more in the middle that says, here were our findings. So this would be a study and report, I suppose. It just says, whatever it is, 2 years later, I forget the last time I saw the scooters around town. 2 years ago?
Well,
Pandemic probably.
we've been getting some complaints of some at 50th in France, but eventually 2 years ago.
Only do so much. So I would propose this as a study and report to say that they aren't going away. Do we want to put this on the table indefinitely, or should we be taking more seriously that we should consider revisiting it?
And potentially criteria at which point we should, or criteria
good
for
point,
why we should consider it or shouldn't consider it, like, okay, if we're something that makes recommendations of when we reach these thresholds, we should look at it again.
Yes.
I like this quite a bit, and I actually think it's a bigger issue than are we ever gonna do Lime scooters again? Because micromobility is here to stay, and it's only gonna continue to grow, and it does cause infrastructure issues. So, and if you look at what we're building, let's just say in the Southdale district, and we've got all this connectedness, that are off-road. And it's like, and individuals now own hoverboards and, you know, their own scooters and I mean, so micromobility is a thing that is here. It's just not here in great numbers yet in Edina. But in some areas, because of the kind of development we're doing, it's gonna continue to grow and will be an issue. So I like it as I mean, I think there's an element to, look, this is gonna be growing here. It's the future. Let's take a look at what has worked and what hasn't worked. What infrastructure needs do we have? Maybe we need ordinances about shared use, you know, with electronic things and non-electronic things.
Yeah.
You know, speed limits on bike paths. And I mean, I just think that it's an important thing for us to be looking at because it is the future.
The public-private piece, I think, is a really good catch because you'll see folks who look like they're going around on a Lyft scooter.
Yeah.
And it's not.
It's theirs. Yeah.
Buy it on Amazon.
Yeah.
So that could be a useful piece to clarify as part of this. As part of it is about just how do we adapt to that being a thing people, in the broadest sense, are choosing to do.
Yeah.
And do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the, you know, if I remember the past pilot, so many of the comments that I recall reading were about use, storage, parking, sidewalks, bike lanes. So it's squarely within our purview. So
do you think that perhaps the good bullets you started with would be guiding your research? However, the deliverable might be a report of findings, something along that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe we could, as a takeaway, model this after either here or later, but like model it after a few of the ones above that we end up doing the same. Okay.
Yeah.
There's all.
I can for sure revise this one.
Okay.
Shop it around before the next meeting. So this I think gives me enough to put some better and different heat on the bones.
Okay.
Cool. I do work with the League of American Bicyclists, and micromobility is a huge issue that they're looking at.
Hey, Andy,
I was gonna.
one thing I was going to say, I think we tried this a few years ago. And one of the reasons why we stopped doing it, maybe it should be a deliverable here, would be to how do you increase usage? That's one, because there wasn't even enough people using it. Two, how do you also reduce the fact when people use these scooters, they drop it at everybody else's backyard. So maybe if you find a solution to that, are the deliverables. And the third part would be the safety, the helmet piece. It's not a requirement. I know it's a state law because I talked about this many times, and every time the way I was stopped is it's not a state law, right? So if you address those three issues, I think everything else would fall into place because the city will invest the money on the infrastructure and all of that.
Thank you. That's really helpful for framing it too.
Andy, did I share my 2020 staff report with you?
Yes.
Okay.
You did.
Okay. So that,
Chris, did you have a comment too?
Yeah, I was just gonna concur with other comments. I think it's. Can everyone hear me? Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I just want to say I think I like it. I like the broader stance of including personal like scooters. I've seen a number of scooters going on 70th Street here, and also e-bikes. Those seem to always be. When I was in Colorado, e-bikes were not considered, and then suddenly they were a major issue, and people were scrambling to catch up on how to create policy to control those. So I would offer that those both shared and personal micromobility devices are key to consider.
My question is, does this then include other small electrified vehicles? Because I think at one point we talked a bit about neighborhood electric vehicles. I can see more and more people wanting to have something like their golf cart that they can drive down to the to get their groceries, as opposed to, well, it could be less energy than taking a car. So it might be other growing trends in micromobility.
So
we
can I suggest that the title of this be micromobility, public-private program study or something like that? Because I'm not sure about exactly where what the shared part is on this.
That might have been this public part.
That's the, okay,
The share is potentially the bike scooter
Okay,
share, but
so-
I think we've
so public-private,
just one
kind of
small
get
part.
at that it's both of those things.
I can.
Okay, all right, perfect.
I'm happy to support you, Andy, as well.
Yeah.
Well, Chris?
I was just saying, I'm happy to support this as well, Andy, if you need any help.
Yeah, I'd take you up on that for sure.
Perfect.
Excellent. All right. And then another Andy.
So this one, is somewhat related to Chris's current number 7. So I think, to Chris's earlier point, he and I and Bokar probably need to sit down and say, this feels like sort of a carry on, excuse me, from this year's number 7 with maybe some revisions in terms of how we structure it or refine it for 22. I was sort of approaching it a little bit more from the angle of, do we have an established partnership as a transportation commission with Metro Transit to partially just be informed, but also advocate for enhanced, consistent service? And a little bit of this I also thought was something around advocacy. I may just be naive to that, but I don't feel like I have a good handle on, to what degree do we publicize or communicate where transit service exists within the city? That could be an explore piece as well. I did dump Cloverite in here just because, I don't know, if we were looking for ways to consolidate initiatives, it felt like it's probably more like public transit than anything else.
I was thinking that same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the third point, I think probably is the, most bold of them. And I feel like this is out there somewhere, just around, do we have any zoning practices pertaining to the sort of area around transit stops? Maybe I'm making that up, but I feel like I've read that somewhere. Maybe that's on their work plan, or maybe that has been out in the atmosphere somewhere. If that's a bridge too far for us, so be it, but I at least felt like I need to over here.
I love it. And really, Bokar, you kind of moved us into this realm a little bit.
Yep.
When we started talking about LRT and what are the bike routes that go there? I think this is beautiful. The only thing that I would, I'd take all that, like we did for the previous one,
Yeah.
move it over into the, what it is. And then what is the deliverable?
This one is less clear to me under the deliverable, because it's sort of some of the things could be recommendations, some of them are just reporting. I feel sort of lost on that.
I think it's enhanced partnership, enhanced, however you say it, enhanced public transit partnership.
Yeah.
And then maybe once you get into it, you can start figuring out what some of the verbals are, the specific ones.
What the research guided.
Yeah,
So I'm a little concerned that this is a lot.
It is.
In one initiative. And for example, this first one is already what I do.
yeah.
All right, I'm not.
Staff level. So,
Oh,
Perfect.
and I mean, aside from that, I think, any one of these individually could be its own, its entirely own work plan initiative. I'm not sure what, I guess I need a little clarification on this one.
It is already in our TDM policy in a way.
The second one, established partnership.
Yeah, for zoning development changes, I mean, that is part of the proposals now that go before the planning commission have to have that plank in them now, right? Isn't that part of it? Isn't that the policy? That big developments will have a TDM plan?
Yes, but it doesn't speak to zoning adjacent to transit lines.
Oh, I see.
Planning Commission also kind of got into this with their proposed off-street parking amendment, which was not approved by city council.
Well, could we remove the first bullet since that's what you do? And Andy has all his, original notes. If you need some.
What if this is, if the initiative is enhanced public transportation options? Because that is one of the things that I think, it's in our goals, in the comprehensive plan. And then you just take two, like one of them is Clover Ride, and the other one is around non-motorized connectivity to transit stops or something like that. You just put two in there, but see, it could be that enhancing public transportation options is an ongoing thing in work plans, and then, you pick two of them every year. And
But Lori, when you say enhance, there's nothing to enhance right now. We don't have any.
I can't hear you, Bokar.
What I'm saying right now, there's nothing to enhance because we don't have anything out there. We need to be present to make sure that we have those connections planned. Right? That's what we should be looking at.
Did he say we don't have any?
Yeah, I just said that, but I think we have some.
We have all kinds.
No, this is to connect directly to, I understand what you're saying, but I'm talking about this very specific, right? So isn't this connecting to the Southwest Light Rail?
Still having trouble.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Bokar.
Okay. Does this initiative also include connecting to the Southwest Light Rail?
It could.
I think it could if we combine it with this year's number 7. I think that was part of our current year work plan number 7, which talks about that. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I wonder, I think this year's work plan could answer the non-motorized connectivity to transit. I mean, I guess it's the E line and LRT.
Correct.
Green line right now. It could continue to consider maybe high frequency transit corridors or something of that nature. Or identifying areas that lack connections to high frequency transit or high quality transit.
Correct.
So to me, the second bullet here is essentially what Initiative 7 this year is, but
Correct.
Initiative 7 is specific to light rail and BRT.
Correct.
So maybe for purposes of keeping us moving, we can take that offline in terms of just deciding, do we put them together, do we not? If so, that will probably keep this as a fairly meaty one. If we choose to keep them separate or do something else, we'll be able to figure that out. Because I think we're gonna have to say, did we finish this current year's, yes or no? And if we want to roll some of those forward, I think we naturally go in here.
That sounds great.
So the last point I'll make is I think there's the E line and green line piece is more future looking, and I'm probably looking at it a little bit more current or short term state of saying, one, like what's going to come back post pandemic, and two, for those things that do come back in the city post pandemic, what have we done or are we doing to make note of those services, provide connectivity to those services?
Good.
Related to this, are there any metrics on what public transportation ridership is each month? For Edina residents or some proxy?
There's a graphic in the ped and bike plan that, or as a result of that engagement, there was some statistics on percentage of residents who ride. I don't recall that offhand. I'd have to check with Metro Transit to see if they have month per month statistics. If they do, I would imagine it's just based on who boards or departs the bus in the city, not
That does
necessarily.
exist.
Could that be to follow that and just see us evolve over time, like.
But that's not to the level of detail of do they live in Edina or not.
Yeah, but if it's the stop, the pickup and drop off were here. What do you guys think? Is that useful information or?
The place where it would be hard to tell is, of course, along France, where you're divided between Minneapolis and Edina, and whether the rider's getting on and off or Edina or Minneapolis. And that's one of our major corridors. Yeah.
When I've looked at it, just strange things to look at for fun, but I think it went down a rabbit hole once. It's a ton of data. Somebody who knows what they're doing could probably do some really fabulous stuff with it, but it's pretty dry, right? The thing will show, here's the stop number at 57th and
I
Woodville.
think we might be getting into more how you might do it right now.
Yeah, I was just thinking of a larger for us or for the city a metric. How would you take the temperature? How are we doing with public transportation? I don't really know. I don't know if we're getting better or worse now with the epidemic. Something to think about.
So it's a good thing to then compare to Clover Red. How are we doing on public transit overall? How does that compare to how we do with Clover?
Yeah.
Depends on what your goal or what your metric is. I guess I would just say.
Andy's going to process this a little bit more.
Yep.
We're pretty far along already. Any other questions or discussion on this one?
Yeah, I think I'd like to talk offline about this one and the previous one, just to make sure we're not, commission's not duplicating work that staff's already doing.
Not a problem, no.
Okay. And Volkar, can you talk us through this one, and then if you can put maybe just try to talk really close to your microphone.
Okay. I'll bring it.
Shannon and Chris are doing it's working for them.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Marginally.
This initiative. Say it again.
Use that voice you have.
Use your outdoor voice.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So I'm just relaxed. So for this initiative is mostly about safe route to schools, congestion. So we're looking at speed reduction by the schools during drop off and pickup. I just narrowed it down. There was more, but I just narrowed it down to those two during drop off and pickup. And also during certain time. And I think what it would require probably, I added here, which is sometimes a road redesign. Okay, because that's just based on the outcome of projects that I've seen when it comes to safe route to schools. So just to keep that in mind.
Could we potentially tie this initiative to implementing or considering the engineering study that was completed for Edina?
I think that'd be phenomenal. It all ties up, but it just will make the scope bigger. But absolutely, we can do that.
Did somebody want to speak? Someone's hand up?
Would this be like the school speed limits where it says when children are present, you go 20 miles instead of 30 miles an hour? Sorry,
I can't hear you guys.
like if you pass by Countryside Elementary, they'll have a sign that says, when children are present, go 20 miles an hour. Isn't that pretty much what that is during pickup and drop off?
I'm so sorry. I can't hear you.
Speed from 30 to
Yeah.
20.
Oh, I think Volkar can't hear you.
Oh. So, my question was, isn't your initiative just the same thing as like the school speed limit where when children are present that you go 20 instead of 30?
Totally different. So this is just one portion of it. Sometimes with safe route to schools, you can narrow those roads down, like do a road diet by making it narrower so nobody can speed. So it's absolutely different. It's using different tools and methods.
Yeah, okay.
So it might be a metric of whether people are obeying those speed
Yeah.
limits.
So Volkar, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm kind of hearing two different initiatives. One is looking at the recent engineering study and potentially recommending when those projects could be implemented. And the second one is more of a broader, almost a redo of or an update of the current Safe Routes to School plan, which would relate to more than just those three schools that were studied, the engineering study.
So I think the first piece here is looking at the congestion that happens, okay, at the high school. totally separate than the study that was done that prioritized those three schools, like the Highland and I think, Highland and Cornelia. So this is an addition that I think that was added, and I'm totally happy to welcome that as an addition part of that.
Is there a little improvement option or opportunity because the title is about congestion and the deliverable is speed reduction?
I am equally a little confused, Boka. Can everyone hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. So I think initially when we started talking about this, I was thinking in terms of how the high school is congested during drop off and pickup. But if you're talking just safe route to school, we would need some backup to say, what are we trying to do? What are we solving for? So safety is an issue as the hypothesis. Do we have data to back that up? So have we studied it over a year period, 24 months? What time period are we talking about to be able to hold that hypothesis of safety route to school? So what is currently happening that we're trying to fix? But initially for me, I was just speaking from experience at the high school level. It is impossible. It's a good hour to get and navigating through that traffic morning and after school when they release. So
to me, I'm looking at it from the lenses
yes,
of traffic flow. Okay. To me, I'm looking at it. So the speed reduction piece was there already. I'm looking at it, safe route school, the flow of the traffic, the crossing, the congestion happens because you have everybody crossing. You have cars going both ways. So I'm looking at it at a more holistic level than just a speed. A speed is just one portion. Right? The speed. So to me, it's reducing that congestion, making sure things flow. Crossing is easier and shorter.
So
okay, I'm gonna speak anecdotally. The last 2 years I have no kids going to school anymore. However, I'm just gonna speak that most of the parents are dropping off or the kids are driving. So that's the contribution to the congestion and stopping or improving the traffic flow. Without any hard data to back up my theory is we have too many cars going there and buses driving empty. But I would need to back up with data on that. So that would be something I would require a study, but definitely just based on my experience when I had kids going and I'm guilty as charged, I dropped them off too. That's how I came to know we are driving too many cars to the high school. So that's all I have.
My comment is, I think this is covering a lot of good topics. It just needs to be narrower and then specify if this is all about high school or safe routes to schools in general. Because I know the title has both on the side of the slash. Like I'm hearing flow, congestion, speed and safety, road design.
Maybe you can just turn it into implementing safe route to school, and then all of that will be covered to make it very easy. Because you'll address all of that stuff, the congestions, the crossing time, and
My question is, who owns the safe route to school plan now? The school district, well, that's the engineering study. But the actual safe routes to school plan, is that a city-owned project, report and
If they-
plan, or is that a school district owned meeting? I'm just looking at it from the perspective of, I know there's always that challenge of city and school district working together and upset when one steps on the other's toes. And that's why I'm asking who actually owns the current plan.
So Mindy, sorry, Mindy, that's exactly why I decided to take this. Okay, but I understand the dynamic very well. And I had meetings before with the principals where we discussed the issue, they welcomed it. So that's exactly why I took this initiative, because I can work with both.
So to answer your question, the current Safe Routes to School plan was developed by the city and the school district together.
Okay.
And that plan has recommendations for action on the part of the city, the school district, and kind of combined recommendations. So to the extent that the plan recommends improvements that the city can make regarding infrastructure, enforcement, education, those are things that I work on as a staff level, like the active routes sidewalks, mostly that are recommended in the active routes to school, or the school zone speed limits as part of the speed limit implementation, for example. But there are also recommendations that are made on the school district side.
So Bokar, are you thinking you have an interest in updating the current active routes to school plan?
No, I just want to see.
Simply using that as a piece of data as it is?
That wasn't my
Can I
initial.
make a suggestion?
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe Bokar and Andrew, you guys can put your heads together because you do some of this already. And Bokar's proposing something else that is partly narrow and partly really broad. Maybe the two of you could take this offline and come back with a refined version of this. Is that? Because I don't think we can hammer it out here.
I'd be more than willing to meet with Bokar, talk about it more.
That'd be great. Let's do that then.
Would anybody else want to participate in that? I know Janet has had some good contributions already. I'm not putting you on the spot, Janet, but
I sure would like to.
just leave that to
yes.
Bokar to decide if he wants to loop in anybody else besides Andrew.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely not a problem. She can absolutely join.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to be involved in this too, because, I'm heavily involved in this area, when we driving to school, got a carpool and everything. So I am just the traffic. It's just.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Bokar about Anna too.
Oh, that would be great, because as a matter of fact, I asked Andrew the list of all the commissioners, because I remember she said she's interested. I've done tons of projects like this all over Minnesota. So I would be more than happy to have her be part of this. This would be great.
Yeah, no, I'd love to just help, just create a solution, because right now it's just so bad. Or well, it's just
Absolutely
a little
correct.
hard to get to out of the high school especially.
You are very
So
welcome.
we should have this one due end of January 2022, so Anna can enjoy all the
Yeah.
improvements the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you. That's good discussion. Anything else? And then one more, Bokar, the traffic safety studies, the process. Oh, and
So
then there's
yeah,
another one after
again,
that
it's
too. Okay.
just, I think the way it was phrased is the traffic safety, the process improvement. Basically, what I put here is just trying to improve that traffic safety study process that we have. But I also put it in a counterbalance, because usually when you have a project, you do improvement, but you have to have a counterbalance. The counterbalance is to say, despite all these improvement that we will be making, we're not going to impact it negatively, right? So that's the only thing I have put here. Just looking at the traffic safety process and coming up with better ways, because that's the same topic that you hear over and over from everybody, including the lady that just showed up today, right? It's just identifying how to improve that process. Any thoughts?
So what I'm hearing is something like review review current traffic impact study process and recommend areas of improvement, something along those lines.
Exactly.
Kind of a next step from the 2020 or 2019 initiative.
Correct.
You write it that way,
The reason, go ahead.
or just add that maybe.
I can't hear you. Okay.
Something along those lines.
That sounds good.
And the deliverable would be process improvement recommendations.
Yeah.
Improved process or, yeah, process improvement recommendation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just looking at any thoughts on narrowing down the completion date a little more? Just asking.
How about if you discuss that when you refine your number, the one for the safe routes to schools congestion one? But for the other one, the process improvements one, I would like to suggest that could be soon, midpoint of the year perhaps, because then we could maybe reap some of the benefit of it, if that doesn't take a long time to put together, like either 3/4 of the way through or half the way through. What do you think, Bokar, for the timing of the traffic studies process improvements?
I think midway would be fine, because I just have to balance everything else, right?
We put like Q3 and then have it done by then or earlier.
Yeah, exactly, that work, Q3. This way, if it's done earlier, the better.
Okay, very good. And then the last one is the facts. Chris, can you walk us through this one?
Yeah, so I, kind of thought about all of the requests that we get from the public and desire to improve our multimodal network and all of the great plans we have to implement those projects, and realize that, the PAX fund is kind of one of our best funding mechanisms. So I was interested in kind of reviewing that more, understanding how construction inflation has affected, the buying power of the PAX fund, and then seeing if there's opportunities to expand, revise, update it to kind of cover all of the great plans that we have in the city and implement those perhaps a bit faster or more effectively.
I think this is brilliant.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Does this also then incorporate the equity criteria that we've been trying to implement as part of our decision-making?
It could. I mean, to me, this seems more of an analysis of, do any changes need to be, any like monetary or policy changes need to be made to update the fund?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
I'll admit, Andrew, I might rely on you a bit to give me some background and some data, but otherwise welcome anyone else to also support. So, but I'm happy to lead.
That's fine. I'll help you.
Okay. Thank you.
So that's the end of the list. Maybe I could ask Lori and Andrew, based on your experience, how do you feel we're sitting with like our progress and quality, and what are your thoughts so far?
I think we have a really great slate of initiatives. I think, depending on how this, how it plays out, like when Scott looks at them and then council looks at them, how it plays out. I think I'm excited about accomplishing some stuff this year. And I think we should put them in order of priority with trash collection at the very top.
Yeah, could we take this won't take too long. Can we sequence some, Andrew?
Yes,
Either by numbering
Just
them
number them, you know.
or moving them physically.
sure. It'd be easier to just number them right now. That's okay.
So I'm hearing, trash collection near the top.
Well, that's my opinion.
What else? I mean, yes, but what
I
else?
I think safe route to school should come 1 or 2. Because this is what's happening all over Minnesota.
Like sequence.
Booker said he's thinking safe routes to school will be the second, 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I also like.
I'm not sure I understand that one well enough to know.
Yeah, we'll review it, but I can show you demonstration projects in private, you and I, so you can see what's happening.
I think that the boulevard tree is medium to high, and I'll just throw out there, I mean, they're all important, but I would say the micro shared mobility study that could be lower.
Yep.
Because
It's a study.
we're studying it, we're gonna do it, but yeah.
So maybe Andrew, instead of putting numbers,
Like high,
maybe just give them like an A, B, or C for
Yeah.
right now.
Then you can fine tune it the way you want,
Yeah.
A being high.
or just high, medium, and low. Whatever you like, Andrew.
So you tell me, that's how this works.
Yeah.
Well, if we do high, medium, low, none of us will forget what A, B, and C mean.
So trash would be high,
Go high.
medium for boulevard.
Yeah.
I would actually advocate for that being high because it's also in line with what's happening with the climate action plan we're working on currently.
Yeah,
I concur with Mindy there on the Boulevard High.
What I heard was low.
Yeah.
this could be medium.
Yeah.
To low.
Yeah. I think it depends on what you really are gonna get as a deliverable there, whether that's high or medium. So I'm not sure. And you guys are
Yeah.
gonna hash that out, so.
Can you put medium question mark?
Yeah.
And then perhaps similar to the micro study, the next one could be low.
Yeah.
Please speak up. I'm maybe being over eager to offer opinion. I don't want to do that. Anybody? Jump in.
Put that one,
This is
tax one
important.
is medium.
Yeah.
Yeah, I so
Because it-
medium
Because
putting
we
it
have
high.
long-term impact.
It makes sense.
It's one that can have a.
That's actually high for the simple fact we need that money, right?
Mm.
There's no money, you can't do any improvements. I would put that one high.
However, it's working now. We just want to look at it and improve it. So.
Okay.
If we didn't have one, it would be high for sure. Or it was ineffective. Well, that was easy.
Yeah, that wasn't too
We
terrible.
got timing, we got needs to finish these out, we've got some to-dos, we have priority, we have really. I think this is a great progress for
I think so.
August.
Just wanted to note that there are a couple of ongoing initiatives in the current work plan that don't seem to be reflected here. Like, I've got Cloveride traffic safety reports, traffic impact studies, and CIP PACS review. I think some of those may be able to be kind of combined with some of these, but
Close right, we
Yeah,
did.
Override, we rolled into the.
Yeah.
Say those,
Okay.
do them one at a time, Andrew, because I thought somewhere assumed to be repeating, can you do those again?
sure. So assuming Cloveride is already accounted for in this initiative, this initiative.
Yeah, that one.
Review of traffic safety reports.
We were assuming that's our job to do, that we don't come up with a work plan for it.
I have to check with MJ because we've gone back and forward
Oh,
on
okay.
whether or not.
Those are
We
unvolved.
had it out this time because we.
If we should though, I mean, that's what I assume that's our ongoing like, operational thing that we do. and we didn't have to propose it, but maybe you just put it in here because we do it.
Yeah, why don't I'll discuss with MJ,
Okay,
and then depending on what she says, maybe I'll talk to you to see if we just
okay,
copy paste the initiative from this year, just so it's on there.
yeah, and what was the third one you thought?
Review of traffic impact studies, that would kind of be,
Well, that I thought we would do anyway. The one Bopar is just to maybe improve the process, but
yeah,
I think we list them as ongoing.
yeah,
And that's what we've done before, but it takes, I mean, that's like regular work. Most of these are like new projects or.
right.
the traffic studies are things we continue doing, the traffic
PACS
safety, the PACS fund review, and then these traffic study things that come up for review. Those three things are things we do now that we would continue.
Maybe we could roll those into one initiative called ongoing work of ETC, and it's those three things.
That's possible. I can check with MJ on that.
Okay.
Yeah, we were just focused on unique work plans that would start and stop next year. Thanks for bringing that up, though, Andrew.
So I'll send this updated document out to the commission and then
Okay,
have those one-on-one conversations.
thank you. Super.
Save.
Please.
Save.
Okay. Excellent. What's next? We have members.
Joint work session. So,
It's like in 3 weeks.
so as I mentioned before, the commission has their joint work session with city council on Thursday, September 9th. The transportation commission is slotted for half that time, so the commission has between 5:30 and 6. And as I mentioned before, it's an opportunity to either get feedback on current work plan initiatives or to seek further guidance as you're developing next year's work plan initiative. So given that there's a relatively brief amount of time for presentation and discussion, I just wanted to give the commission some time to talk about what are some things they might want to discuss with council specifically, or if there are specific questions that you want to talk to council about.
Will it be downstairs?
To be determined.
Oh,
I think it might be in the council chambers to allow for social distancing, but I have to look into that.
it'll be in the building. So when we prepare for that, would we be having, who attends besides me?
Good question. So the work sessions, like any council work sessions, open to anybody. So they're public meetings, they're advertised. So if everybody in the commission wants to attend, you certainly can. But it's usually not the case. It's usually just 1 or 2 commissioners who attend. The chair usually leads the presentation, or the vice chair if the chair is not available.
Okay, do we push out to them, like recap high level how we're doing and then invite their questions, or do they have an agenda for us and we leave for answering questions?
It's your meeting to lead. So it typically starts with the commission seeking any specific feedback that they're looking for, not necessarily toward the end of it. Some council members may throw out questions or offer suggestions, but you should plan for it to be you take the lead and ask council or ask specific questions or seek specific feedback from council.
Can we come in with like a very brief talking point presentation that we can guide them through, like PowerPoint?
You can do that. It's not required, but you can do that.
then I'm wondering if we can just take a minute then and see, for people that are leading initiatives now, if you are thinking it would be beneficial to you to close out your work for being present there, and then what you would like to do with that time.
Trying to wait for other people to speak up, but my head's full of.
Please.
Here's your, so I think, Bill should give a brief overview of the research that you've done on organized trash collection. With sort of the culmination of, and so for that reason, we are going to propose this in our work plan for next year. And then give them an opportunity. So then I think it's a dialogue. I think that is a big deal and they're gonna wanna talk about it.
Right.
So in a strange, I mean, in a, I guess, good way, it moves us from, here's what we're doing and we're wrapping it up.
Yeah.
And, you know, you'll see the full report. Here are the highlights.
Or finding out what they concretely need.
Yeah.
To be convinced to move forward.
Yeah.
Also, maybe their appetite for it, you know, what are the pitfalls? I know we, on the TDM thing,
Right.
we kind of, in retrospect, I realized more, they were looking for a policy, not an ordinance. You know, I mean, that was sort of, they're seeing sort of get a little bit of, take their temperature a bit on where we go with it.
Well, what, you know, what cautionary, you know, things should we be aware of? To what degree do you want, you know, public surveys and information, you know, a bunch of, we can come in with some prepared questions about that. But I think, that would be good. I think if we're gonna propose the Boulevard tree thing, we should probably talk a little bit about that, just that, you know, this is a little slice of what we're hoping is a broader tree initiative. Something like that. So I think we should talk a little bit about the work plan. And then if we can, if folks are agreeable to it, I'd really like to talk about the degree to which they hear transportation, ETC concerns about development plans. Because I think we can explain the situation, that this thing happened and we had a resident come. And we know that we had the same concerns. And we're just not sure if there's a way we should be presenting our concerns that would make them easier for you to, you know, to get, or, I mean, I don't have that all canned yet, but something about that. Or if we should just not be commenting on them at all, because this is a new thing. It's only been going for a year or two. We're still kind of finding our feet on it, but we also want to be effective if we're doing it.
Right. I think that's a good one.
Those would be the two, the work plan. And
Those three things: trash collection, what we're coming up with and what we're leaning toward, and get their appetite, and then the tree boulevard.
maybe,
And then this topic.
yeah, something like that. Those are my things, but
I think that last one would be very meaty. I'm not sure exactly what it looks like.
I think, Lori's, if I heard right, you're willing to develop that a bit.
I could develop that a little bit, yeah.
And Andrew, what is the input to get ready for that? Is it just to show up, or if we have something to show, is there something due by a certain date?
Yeah, there is a meeting packet, just like there are for this meeting or for the council meetings. So that would be due, I believe, the Thursday before, so the 2nd. If you want any materials included in that, I would need them by that time to include them in the agenda packet.
And you collect those for us?
Yes.
Okay.
So Jill, if you have a fairly finished version of your report, I wonder if that could go in that packet.
I'd like to get consensus on that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's distilled.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always add more.
Yeah, that's okay though. I mean, I think we want to, I'm hopeful that we can set the table for that.
Yes. I'll wait for everyone's comments.
Okay, yeah.
And then so those three things Lori mentioned, but then would we also have our titles of, and the bare bones of what we're proposing for all the rest of the 2022, so that there's open questions and answers on those.
You can, if you want. If you want to include the work plan proposal where, I mean,
Is there also a separate meeting where we present the work plan?
there is. So as far as the work plan timeline goes, the commission will approve their work plan at the September meeting, and then at the work session in October, I'm blanking on the specific date, but it's early October, the commission will present their work plan proposal for comments and questions.
Okay.
And then in November, staff presents their comments on the work plan proposals before council approves them.
Okay,
So they kind of argue against the whole work plan
Right,
preview there and just preview our headliners.
that's what I was thinking.
Just another question I would have, as far as the organized trash initiative for this year, does the commission envision just like delivering the report to council on like consent agenda, or does the commission envision giving a presentation to council? The reason I ask is because if it's the latter, I would recommend not spending as much time in the work session previewing it. If you're not planning to give a presentation to council, then maybe you can spend more time at the work session talking about it, but just so that they're not hearing the same information
yeah,
2 times.
that's what, I don't think we thought about delivery of it yet.
Yeah.
If it's a presentation, is it a city council meeting?
Yes. The work sessions are all booked up for the rest of the year.
Well, can we give them high level overview where we are, where we think we're going, and then ask them how they want to?
Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. You can do it however you want. It's just what I'm suggesting. But yeah, you can certainly give them a high level overview of where you're at and where you want to go with it.
Yeah, depending on how your meeting goes on Monday, that conversation might include
Yes.
why organized trash collection is a transportation issue.
Oh, that's
Because
a good
council-
idea.
Because council may not see that. I think council has probably always seen it as an Energy and Environment Commission issue.
Do you have a,
Because, I mean, I think it has been, I think Energy and Environment has considered it since the initiation of their commission.
Yeah, I see.
I mean, I think it was there when my husband was on the commission. So, but it's been public pushback that has prevented them from going forward. And this is totally my interpretation.
Public pushback in general, not because the EEC was pursuing it, it's just the whole notion.
Right.
yeah, there's a lot of people out there, you know, we did this on a micro level in our neighborhood and
Quality of life
Couldn't get
survey
any-
or something.
It's been a question on the quality of life survey, I believe, since its inception in 2011. So it's been a question we've asked every 2 years for the last 10 years.
And has it been shifting? As I recall, it's been shifting.
This year, there was a slight uptick, went up to 53% in support. Prior to that, it's been bouncing around 50%.
I still think it'd be a good thing to talk
Yeah,
about,
but I
and
think-
I think present it to city council. That way you get more viewership. And I think, I don't know what you'd have in mind, but one thing that would be nice to have there is that picture with all the trucks there.
The whole video.
Do you know what I mean? And then just, and have a video or
In
something.
time lapse.
And I know, yeah.
Could I ask then, I can go to that, I'm planning to go, and Jill and Lori, are you able to attend?
What is the date on that?
September 9th,
Okay, okay.
Thursday, it's 5:30 p.m. to 6. If you
Yes, that's on
can't,
my calendar.
I would cover for you, but it would be great if you can be there.
My question is, is there a specific date we would, if we present to council, what date would that be? At any council meeting? We just have to have a schedule?
Any regular council meeting.
Okay, so we didn't really need to worry about that. We
No.
can get on it. We can jump on once we're ready.
Correct.
Okay. It's already in my calendar, so yes.
So I know, okay. So that part is good too. Does anybody have other suggestions for how we use our time there or questions? I think we have a good plan. Okay. Don't want that, Tommy?
Because I do think just one of the things, the boulevard trees, I think is the same thing of last time we had trees on our work plan, they all got pulled off and it got given to Parks and Rec. And now we're back again. Again,
Yeah.
we're gonna be making our case of why it's a transportation issue.
I'm less worried about it this time.
I agree with you. I'm less worried about it as well.
We're good.
Okay,
So we'll move on to chair and member comments.
yeah,
Anyone want to start?
I don't have any comments. Start there.
Just go around like we
Sure.
usually do.
Yeah, I would like to talk more about the, what we talked about earlier and the discussion to be, but it might be better given the time for us to put on the next agenda.
like the 4425 Valley Blue.
Yeah.
Topic of that process. I would like that too.
I would note with that, she did provide in her communications the date that council, I think it was in the email version, she had a link to the recording of the council meeting where it was covered.
Yeah.
And she kind of quotes something on here about the engineering staff member was asked about the bike path, but what she says is the response was that the needed solution had to involve all the properties, which confuses me. So I would definitely want to review
So that would
to
be
find
better
out.
prep than discussing it now.
Mindy or Bruce or anybody, would you be willing to help put together some talking points for our next meeting so maybe we can have that in the packet on this topic?
Not quite sure, say more about what you're thinking. That would-
Oh, well, if we address it next
Uh-huh.
meeting, then
And what's the
just-
goal?
What's the question?
just to be-
What's our goal?
Just be ready and then have our meeting packet contain everything we need, that kind of thing.
So
I think now,
going back and looking at some of the links.
yeah, and now I guess everything's in communications plus maybe inclusion of whatever extra she provided, which was maybe only the map. What are you thinking?
So I'd be willing to give just a brief presentation to recap the process. If there are specific questions that the commission wants answered, maybe that's where you two can send me specific questions you want addressed and I can try to address them.
I think that makes sense because it is the process that we're most concerned about, right? Even more than that one particular property, although that's a big deal. It's actually about the process. I think that'd be a great place to start. And then we can show you anything that, or any of us can after watching the video.
Right. Oh, yeah, anyone could ask
Or from
questions.
Session with council, since it's also somewhat of a topic there of how do they hear our comments and
True.
is it being provided in a manner that's useful to them?
If any of you in your research find the direct links to kind of what happened around that particular question about
Yeah.
the bike path, let's take a look at it before we have the work
You're
session.
right, the timing isn't great to have that conversation before we vetted it.
Exactly.
You know, or just chewed on it a little bit,
Right.
and hear what the question is or recommendation is.
Anand?
No.
No comments from me either.
Okay,
No comment.
Janet?
Well, I think it has probably been mentioned, but it's disconcerting for me to think there was a discussion from the commission and passed on to city council, but was never taken up by city council to follow up. And the reason I'm concerned about that is we are a cross section of this community representation. So if we are making some recommendation, but then it's just ignored and set aside, that's not good. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Janet. Chris?
I concur with Janet and have no other comments.
Mindy?
That's taken care of. I think another thing is the climate action plan will be sent for, or will be open for public comment on September 1st. And the comment period at this point is only scheduled to be September 1st to October 1st. The transportation and land use section of that is very large. And I think it's got a lot of things from the comprehensive plan. It's got a lot of things that we as a commission have talked about at various times. And so as soon as it's available, I'll make sure that I send the link to Andrew to send to everyone. One of the challenges that I'm thinking about already as part of that committee is how the public is ever going to be able to digest what we're putting together in a 1 month period and be able to comment on it. But I just want the commission to know that that is coming, in particular, the transportation and land use section of it would be really valuable to have more comments from this commission. Because I think there's a lot of really good stuff in it. So. The one other comment, there was, Andrew had sent us an article about MIDOT's recommendations on separated buffered bike lanes. And one of the things that jumped out when I read that was that 40% of all trips in the US are 2 miles or less.
Yeah.
So I asked Andrew, how does that correlate to like our nodes to Edina? And essentially the answer is the map essentially says nearly all of Edina is within 2 miles of one of our business nodes. So if that doesn't tell us what our opportunity is for 2 miles is a very easy biking distance. It's a very easy micro transit distance. It seems like, you know, getting people to, and that's just one potential destination within Edina, but it really gave me that perspective of how small we are land-wise and how easily we can be, or you know, how do we help move people to finding other modes of transit in that 40% of their commutes that are 2 miles or less.
Yeah.
Just that for thought.
Thank you.
No comment.
Of course, I have a couple. I'm checking back in with you, Andrew, about the 58th Street reconstruction and the lack of grass where grass seed was planted. It's all weeds, and now I've seen like trucks watering the weeds. Is there some resolution? Is TARP gonna redo? I mean, I took pictures in case anybody wants to see it, and I've seen city staff out there taking pictures of these huge weed beds that are supposed to be grass. It's just appalling. What's the resolution on that?
I'd have to check with design and construction. I haven't been updated on that. I do know that the city is we're starting to get to the point in the drought where we're looking at further conserving water. So that's going to significantly affect our turf establishment efforts.
Yeah, I just don't think it's on the city to establish that turf. I mean, yeah, you've probably seen the pictures that city staff has taken too.
I've driven through there too.
Okay, number two, some of you might know that there was a water main break on France. Actually, I've heard there were 2 water main breaks on France, but so one of them broke and traffic was routed down Ewing from France. So, and it's a complicated reroute. So actually what they were supposed to do was go down to Xerxes from France, down to Xerxes. But you also could not get onto France from 60th. So the end result was buses, semis, and cars from France were going down a neighborhood street with little kids all day long. And the police department came and put no parking on one side of the road so that the cars could go really nice and fast down the road so that nobody was parked there. And this was really a problem. So I asked Andrew about what happened, and he said, well, the utilities did it and they didn't consult transportation. I'm like, well, there's a gap. It's like, wow, they didn't consult the transportation department. They just rerouted down a neighborhood street. It was bizarre. So there's got to be some fix in the system that even when it's an emergency like that, it's like, well, it was like that all day long. So the initial setup could have been changed, but wasn't. Anyway, and I wasn't there most of the day, but my neighbors gave me about 18 barrels of what it was like on their street that day. And people were walking in the road trying to slow traffic down. It's like, it was terrible. Okay, that's two, and then this was the third one. I walk down France from time to time. There's a sidewalk only on the west side of France. But I'm on the east side, so I have to cross. And there are no crosswalks on France, except for at 58th. And yet there are bus stops, city bus stops, all the way along France on the east side. So if somebody gets off the city bus on the east side and needs to cross, they run across France like I do. So as I'm doing that on the way back from where I was going, the mail carrier was doing the same thing. The mail carrier parks on the east side, runs across France through the traffic to go deliver mail. I said, don't you think there should be crosswalks here? Because people get off the bus, and he goes, yeah, but that's Edina. I'm like, so this is the reputation. And I know that it's a county road, and I didn't even bother to go into that. But I do think that, so we have this initiative that relates to public transit and the bus stops, and then we have all these bus stops, and then just this dangerous situation on France Avenue.
Could we put crosswalks if we wanted to on France?
With permission.
So generally speaking, the arrangement is if they meet Hennepin County warrants, they'll install them and they'll maintain them. If they don't meet Hennepin County warrants, then I believe they will install them, but then the city has to maintain them in perpetuity. I'd also add that the section of France between 44th and Southfield Transit Center, a lot of those stops are going to be consolidated with the E-line. So most of the stop locations will be all of the stop locations will be at signalized intersections with the exception of 47th Street and 62nd Street.
So 62nd Street is one of the places. I mean, so this is really between Crosstown. I'm really talking about between Crosstown and, well, let's say 58. And, you know, there's in some places not great visibility because there's a big hill. Anyway, it's dangerous, and the reputation of Edina is, yeah, Edina doesn't really care about pedestrian traffic, and we don't take care of people who are on foot. And that was by our mail carrier, so, all right.
Well, and that's where the 42nd Street crossing, I don't know if there's any update on that.
I've got an update.
Real good.
Cool.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I don't have any.
Can I go back to one more thing I forgot that I just wanted to, mostly it's a question for you, Andrew. I think I remember you saying we've changed the material that gets used when oiling new streets or whatever the process is called. And now, for the first time, I think I've experienced it, thinking, along with my neighbors, that something had gone wrong in the street cleaning process that had spread gravel all over. And I dutifully reported it. And later thought, oh, I suddenly realized it was only on the streets that had been reconstructed recently, and not the ones next to it that are still up for reconstruction. It's now a light-colored material. And then the question is there a better way to sign that? Because everyone thought that it was something in that same area, there are 3 tear down and reconstructions happening or more. So everyone thought that it had picked up debris from a construction site and spread it all over the roads.
I have information on that as well. You don't have anything, Kirk?
I don't.
Okay, just a couple quick things. Council approved staff's implementation plan for the speed limit reduction and the associated ordinance. So staff, we've ordered the sign panels. We expect to start installing them in September and finishing by the end of the year. I'm working on building the Drive 25 website for more information for residents. Last week, Corrective Asphalt Materials performed a pavement maintenance project on 12 miles of streets in the city. The process itself is similar to seal coating. It's an alternative to seal coating, basically, but what the process involves is an application of an oil product oil product, instead of sitting on top of the pavement like seal coating does, it soaks into the pavement, but it takes time to soak in. So while it's soaking in, a light coating of sand is distributed on the street for temporary skid resistance. That sand is typically swept up 1 to 2 days after treatment, but that was not the case this year. It took our contractor several more days to complete the sweeping. But all areas should be swept by the end of today. And the streets there will still be a little bit of sand left on the streets until really our next big rain event. But otherwise, they should be all safe to travel. The city's working with Minneapolis and Hennepin County to consider enhanced pedestrian crossing at France and 42nd.
Can I just ask one more question
Oh,
back
yeah.
on that? Because before they did that, there were signs that got put up, but the signs I think said, and of course they were gone, so I'm relying on my memory. I think the sign said street cleaning. That's part of what led to our misunderstanding of the neighborhood. Instead of saying street maintenance or street, so it might be that the signage that gets put out before it happens could be better worded. So that we don't, because then of course we thought, well, it was supposed to be cleaned, why is it
Sure.
here?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. From what I recall seeing is contractor typically when they're doing the work, they put out signs at all the border areas of the project area that say like oil on street or gravel on road.
That's not, these were signs that said street cleaning coming, like something like in the next 2 days or something.
Okay.
Because it was there right before they did it, and they were taken down after they had done it.
Okay, I'll look into that.
Okay.
We did also send letters to all properties within the areas to let them know that this was coming, but the letters didn't give a specific date of when the work was going to be done. Like I said, we're working with Minneapolis and Hennepin County to consider an enhanced pedestrian crossing at France and 42nd. Such a project could potentially be constructed as early as 22, based on current workloads and budget. The city has renewed its membership in the 169 Corridor Coalition.
What's an enhanced crosswalk?
So something more than just a marked crossing.
Okay.
The city's renewed its membership with the 169 Corridor Coalition. I'll be serving as staff representative for Edina. A reminder that our next meeting is Thursday, September 23rd at 6 p.m. Recall that this meeting is moved to the third Thursday, so as not to conflict with Yom Kippur. It will be held in the multi-purpose room at the Public Works facility. The address is 7430 Metro Boulevard. And all the remaining meetings for this year will be at Public Works and will be in person only. And masks will be required as they are right now in city facilities.
So, sorry, just to clarify, so it's 9/16. Is our next meeting?
Let's move to the 23rd.
9/23.
Oh,
It's the
9/23.
third Thursday or the fourth Thursday instead of the third.
I think, yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
And that's all I have.
The last thing is making a motion to close the meeting, correct?
So moved.
Correct.
Second.
That's lightning fast. Roll call.
Commissioner Aller,
Hi.
Commissioner Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Kane,
Aye.
Commissioner Katui,
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis, Commissioner McCarthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Plum Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Richmond, Chair Johnson.
Aye,
We stand adjourned.
thank you.
Mindy?
Yeah.
Does the override, what are the hours of operation of the override?
Right. Right.
See, if not, then.
I think our question.
The other question
Yes.
I think I had to miss a couple meetings recently. The 4475 project, it was discussed here, but I don't really remember. So I think it was on the, do you remember what meeting it was? No problem.